So this puts you and your philosophy at odds with President Trump. You've defined victory in the Middle East as, quote, that we don't have another 9/11, adding, quote, that may require that we're there for a long time. How do you respond to the president's criticism that your approach essentially means having U.S. service members in Syria and Afghanistan indefinitely?
You know, I think, first of all, President Trump has had tremendous success across the board on a whole range of national security issues. He was absolutely right to withdraw from the Iran nuclear agreement, absolutely right to withdraw, to announce that we will withdraw from the INF. He's had tremendous success and has done exactly the right thing in terms of resources for the Pentagon over the last 2 years. And so I support very much what he's done there. But I think that in the same way that we saw with President Obama, you do not end a war by withdrawing from the battlefield.
I don't understand how the people of Wyoming can vote for someone like Liz Cheney, who they know profiteers off of every drop of blood that's spilled in the Middle East. It doesn't matter if it's our soldiers' blood or the blood of a newborn baby. Liz Cheney is there with her father to make money. And this is the worst kind of people in the world. Worse than, I should say, the worst kind of war profiteers, because I think war profiteers in general are the worst people in the world. And in order to make the world a safer place for children, we must jail the war profiteers, especially the ones at the top, especially the ones in positions to vote to keep the war going. We can't withdraw our troops. The end of a war does not finish with the withdrawal of our troops because she makes money. The more troops that are out away from their families, the more of our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers that are sent away from our country, out to different places all over the world, putting them into harm's way. The more of them that are out there in harm's way, the more money her and her father and her family make. They make money off of our soldiers being in harm's way. That was the entire point of the Iraq War, was so that Cheney could become even more rich than he ever dreamed. That was the entire point of the Iraq War. So they could destabilize the Middle East, so they would have an endless war to profiteer from for generations to come. And we all know that Halliburton has profiteered off our military, off our troops, off every drop of blood spilled in the Middle East from day one, like no other. Actually, lots of other people have profiteered, probably just as much. But it's disgusting that someone whose father lied, fabricated the lies, not just lied about it, but her father, Dick Cheney, helped fabricate the lies to send our military into Iraq, creating the whole Islamic State, killing 1 million innocent Iraqis based on lies. And now this person, his daughter, is in a position in the House of Representatives to vote to keep our troops there forever. Because that's who she is. That's how she makes her money. That's how she feeds her family, is off every drop of blood spilled in the Middle East, regardless if it's American blood or the blood of some newborn Iraqi, Afghani, Somali baby. Okay, her and her father have more blood on their hands than any abortion doctor in the known universe. Have more babies' blood. Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney, have more blood from babies on their hand, dead babies on their hands, than any abortion doctor in the known universe. End of story. And somehow she gets elected after her father lied us into a war. She gets elected from the same state that her father is from, the state where they live. She gets elected to Congress to keep our troops over in Iraq based on lies, just so that her family can keep getting more and more rich. This is the worst kind of people on the planet, and somehow the people of Wyoming can't see that. Oh, we hate infanticide. The Republicans are against infanticide. No, they're not. Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney have the blood of more babies on their hands than any abortion doctor in the known universe. End of story. And they did it solely to make money, solely based on lies, to make money, to make their family rich, to feed their babies off the blood of the innocent. That's who Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney is, and this is why they must be arrested in order to make the world a safer place for children. All of you people who want to make the world a safer place for children, how in the hell can you elect Dick Cheney and his daughter? How in the hell can you allow them to walk around knowing that they profit off the blood of newborn babies, dead, killed newborn babies? That's how they make their money. That's how they feed their families. How can they be allowed to walk around in public? They need to be in prison in order to make the world a safer place for children. It's that simple. Anyone with eyes and ears can see that, unless your own personal bias blinds you. And that would be a really unfortunate way to go through life. But generally, when it comes to personal bias, people go, I don't give a fuck, because that's your personal bias. You don't give a fuck about what's right, only about your personal bias. Right? Wyoming. Mox News survives solely on donations from generous people like yourself. In the last week, 2 people have donated $5 each. Woohoo! Mox News is surviving, going strong. I'd really like to be here for the 2020 election. You know, if nothing else, I could cover my 5th election here on YouTube. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I fight for freedom. I fight for our troops. I fight for the blood of the innocent. And yet, you want to look at me and find some reason why, after serving you for years, I don't deserve for you to give anything back. Right? I gotta move beyond this money thing. I don't know why you people won't help me. There is no more reliable source. And all of them make a lot of money. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. My name's Mike. This is my YouTube page, Mox News. It's easy to leave a donation at moxnews.com, or there's clickable links in the text body of this video. Stay cool. One of these days this war is going to end. And we probably have to put people like Liz Cheney in prison in order to make that happen. Because otherwise, her and her family that comes after her are just, and the people like her are just going to keep voting to keep our brothers and sisters, our sons and daughters, our mothers and fathers, our soldiers, the people you say that you respect so much, the best of the best, putting their lives on the line for us, over there into harm's way so that they can make more money, like they don't already have enough money. How can you allow this to happen? And how can you not see when someone's fighting for you and them, and understand how important someone like that is? There's clickable links in the text body of this video if you'd like to leave a donation or a tip. It's very much appreciated.
Welcome back to State of the Union. I'm Jake Tapper. President Trump is heading to the border town of El Paso tomorrow, trying to keep the focus on his border wall just days before the government is set to partially shut down again over wall funding. On Capitol Hill, lawmakers are trying to seem hopeful that they can come up with a deal that the president will agree to. The latest negotiations center around about $2 billion for border barriers. That is short of the $5.7 billion President Trump said he wanted. Joining me now to discuss this and much more, the third-ranking Republican in the House, Conference Chair Liz Cheney. The Congresswoman joins us from Casper, Wyoming. Congresswoman, good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Great to be with you.
So the federal government will partially shut down on Friday if President Trump and Congress cannot find a compromise on the president's border wall. Do you think Republicans in Congress can convince President Trump to sign off on about $2 billion for border barriers, or are you more skeptical? Do you think we're headed for another shutdown?
Well, I certainly hope we're not headed for another shutdown. I think the president's been clear, and the Republicans in the House have certainly been clear that we absolutely have got to secure the border. You know, I thought it was interesting when you watched the negotiations that have been going on between our bipartisan and bicameral committee. When the committee members had a chance to go visit the border, when the committee members had a chance to hear from Border Patrol agents themselves in testimony, it really made a difference, I think. And I think that there's bipartisan agreement. We got to secure the border. I think there are some members of leadership on the Democratic side, in particular Speaker Pelosi, who really is out there on her own saying things like walls are immoral and she will only allow $1 for a wall. The American people want the border secure. So I'm hopeful that this committee will be able to come up with a proposal that we can all support, that the president can sign. But it's going to have to include funding that will allow us to secure the border, and it'll have to include funding for some sort of a barrier. So, but $2 billion, theoretically, you're not agreeing right now to anything, but $2 billion for border barriers would be a compromise for you that you would be willing to accept, theoretically? Well, you're not going to be surprised, Jake. I'm not going to negotiate about it this morning on your show. I think it's going to have to be sufficient funds through an agreement, hopefully, that we can reach that will enable us to know that moving forward we'll be able to have a wall, have a barrier on those parts of the border where it's really necessary. And, I think there's been a lot of mistruth out there about this. You've seen the Democrats try to suggest that we want to build a 2,000-mile-long wall. That's absolutely not the case. But what we're talking about is something that's very practical, where it's necessary, where it's needed, where our Border Patrol agents say that it will help us control and stop the flood of illegal immigrants across the border. We need to have a border wall. I want to turn to foreign policy. Take a listen to President Trump at the State of the Union address.
As a candidate for president, I loudly pledged a new approach. Great nations do not fight endless wars. It is time to give our brave warriors in Syria a warm welcome home.
So President Trump said he's probably going to make a formal announcement this week announcing that the U.S.-led coalition now controls 100% of ISIS territory in Syria. You're on the House Armed Services Committee. Why not bring the troops home? Well, I think several things. Number one, we've done tremendous work both in Syria as well as in Afghanistan. But in Syria, the issue is not the territorial control. In Syria, the issue is whether or not we're able to ensure that ISIS doesn't reconstitute. And we've had about 2,200 special operations forces there. They've been doing crucially important work that you can only do from there, providing air support, providing some artillery support, helping to work with the local forces to really help ensure the defeat of ISIS. It's got to be an enduring defeat, though. And so when you've got a situation like we have now, where you've seen the caliphate, as the president is saying, there will be this announcement that the caliphate has been 100% taken back. I hope that's right. But you cannot be, we can't be fooled into thinking, if we just withdraw the troops now, we come home, ISIS won't reconstitute. We've got to ensure that we do everything necessary to prevent them from forming safe havens. We know that there are significant numbers of ISIS fighters still in Syria today.
And we don't want to have to go back again. I think that would come at much greater cost of lives and treasure.
So this puts you and your philosophy at odds with President Trump. You've defined victory in the Middle East as, quote, that we don't have another 9/11, adding, quote, that may require that we're there for a long time. How do you respond to the president's criticism that your approach essentially means having U.S. service members in Syria and Afghanistan indefinitely?
You know, I think, first of all, President Trump has had tremendous success across the board on a whole range of national security issues. He was absolutely right to withdraw from the Iran nuclear agreement, absolutely right to withdraw, to announce that we will withdraw from the INF. He's had tremendous success and has done exactly the right thing in terms of resources for the Pentagon over the last 2 years. And so I support very much what he's done there. But I think that in the same way that we saw with President Obama, you do not end a war by withdrawing from the battlefield. And when President Obama did that and he withdrew our forces from Iraq precipitously, you ended up with civil war in Syria, you ended up with the rise of ISIS, you ended up with the caliphate. I don't want to see us go down that path again. So I think it's very important for us to remember, you know, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda is embedded with the Taliban in Afghanistan. The Taliban will not live up to any negotiated deal that we set with them. The notion that we're somehow going to have a negotiated deal with the Taliban, that we can take their word that they won't allow Al-Qaeda to have safe havens again, is in my view, irresponsible. And we've got to ensure that our forces are there based on the conditions on the ground, and not based on, frankly, what has been Rand Paul's approach, which is, you know what, I've just decided it's too long, we're going to come home. You don't win wars that way. You don't keep the nation safe that way.
I want you to take a look at something the president tweeted last night. He wrote, quote, today Elizabeth Warren, sometimes referred to by me as Pocahontas, joined the race for president. Will she run as our first Native American presidential candidate, or has she decided that after 32 years, this is not playing so well anymore? See you on the campaign trail, Liz. That word trail in all caps, an apparent reference to the tragedy, the Trail of Tears. Just a few weeks ago, the president also made a reference to Wounded Knee in a joking manner when talking about Elizabeth Warren. You represent thousands of Native Americans in Wyoming. Do you have concerns about the president joking about these horrific tragedies?
You know, I have concerns about somebody like Elizabeth Warren pretending to be a Native American. You know, you're absolutely right. I do represent, you know, thousands of Native Americans here in Wyoming. And the notion that anybody of any political party would pretend that they were a member of a tribe or would pretend that they were Native American and would do it as she seems to have done it in order to get benefits, that is, in my view, the disgrace. And so I think, you know, she's made herself a laughingstock. You know, I wonder whether or not anybody around her is saying, you know, it's time to say this just isn't going to work, because I think at this point, you know, each time she sort of tries to take one more step to show that she wasn't claiming membership in a tribe or claiming that she was a Native American in order to get benefits, we see that it wasn't true.
So I hear what you're saying about Elizabeth Warren, but what about the language that the president uses and the joking references to genocide against Native Americans?
Look, Elizabeth Warren has made herself a laughingstock, and I don't think anybody should be surprised that that's been the reaction to her and to her continued claims. And we saw just last week, you know, that she said she was a Native American on her application for membership in at least one state bar association. You know, one wonders whether or not that's grounds for disbarment. If you misrepresent yourself on your application to the bar, I'd say it probably is grounds for disbarment. So, you know, she's made herself a laughingstock. I think the longer that she's out there, the more that people are going to be talking about this. And it's clear that, you know, she's somebody who can't be trusted.
Okay, so no comment on what the president had to say. Congresswoman Liz Cheney, thank you so much for joining us. Hope to have you back again sometime soon. Have fun in Wyoming.
Thanks, Jake. Good to be with you.
Saudi Arabia is denying any...